You're listening to Investify, preaching financial independence and assisting investors to achieve a more flexible and free lifestyle through smart financial planning and real estate investing. If leaving the corporate world and jumping into this thriving industry is what you desire, tune in and listen to stories of like-minded individuals who made the leap to financial independence. Equip yourself with the right tips and tricks to start your real estate journey, making active or passive ventures that are highly profitable and rewarding. Here are your hosts, Craig Curelop and Zeona McIntyre.
What's going on, everyone? You are listening to Investify. My name is Craig Curelop, aka the Fi Guy, and I'm here with my co-host Zeona McIntyre. Z Money, how you doing today, Z?
What up? I'm doing great. So I know everybody has been sitting on pins and needles about this, but I finally got a car, and I'm proud to say, Craig, that I did the Fi thing, and I didn't get a luxury vehicle.
You didn't get a BMW.
Which is funny because he mentions this actually in this episode that he's like the typical real estate agent with the slick back hair and the BMW. And I was like, damn. But no, I didn't get a BMW. I ended up getting a Mazda CX-5, which is freaking fancy, actually, and still pretty affordable. So I felt like I did the smart thing, and the payments are paid for by a house that I bought last year. And so it makes me feel like I still was in the realm of having the house pay for the car. So
you bought the car. So you did buy the car and you got a loan on it.
Yeah.
What was your thought process there? Because I know a lot of, especially Fi people, think that, it's best just to buy it cash.
Because I think I can make more money with that money. So I would rather with everything, it was like $29,000. So that's after all of my registration fees and taxes, whatever. I think I can take that and buy a house. I can do something more that I can make more than 3%. And so that's my reasoning. But if somebody's like, oh, I'm just going to be sitting on a lot of cash, that's different. So it really just depends on what is your strategy and like how optimized are you? Right.
Love that. Yep. I totally agree too. I used to be in that boat of like, yes, I should. I've never purchased a car with a loan. And I've also never driven an expensive car. And so but I'm thinking now for my next one, I'm like, well, yeah, I might go something. I might do that, right? Because you put $3,000 or $4,000 down. Sure, you got a monthly payment, but the car payments are so low, the interest rates. I've got a fun little story for you.
Give us stories. You never have stories.
Yeah, we are in. So we're in. I've got two stories, but I'll spare you one of them.
Okay.
I'm in Coeur d'Alene, Idaho right now. And our house does not have internet. So I've been running around trying to find a good internet place to work basically. And this coffee shop said they had work offices so I could shoot this podcast, but they're not open, literally none of them. So 30 minutes before I'm running around trying to find a place. Just so happens there's this co-working space 1 block away, but literally no one was there, but the door was unlocked. So I just kind of walked in and I'm now in this co-working space.
You're guerrilla co-working.
Yeah, I'm guerrilla. I'm literally trying to find
someone to kick you out.
Yeah. The whole episode, I'm looking up and around. I'm like, oh shit, I hope no one sees me. But I'm wanting to I owe these people money. I'm trying to find someone to pay. And there's no one here. So
that's so weird.
Yeah. Well, that's my funny story. So that's what you call office hacking. But let's, so we've got an awesome guest today. Taylor Doolittle. He is a good friend of mine, realtor out in Minneapolis, but he doesn't talk too much about his real estate business here. It's all about just his journey, his life, and his, and how real estate his real estate investing has changed it. What did you think of Taylor?
I think it's a great episode. It's everything that I love. There was a lot of depth. And so we talk a lot about purpose, vision, faith. I think it's just really powerful. And so I'm excited for people to listen all the way to the end. There's some really good nuggets about how we goal set between the three of us.
Yeah, the final four is actually really, really good. We go pretty deep. And I think he even almost cries a little bit. So that's always fun when you can pull emotions out of people.
Winning.
Yes. Yeah, we like to make people cry on this show. Hey everyone, big news. Investify has now partnered with Rent Ready. And yes, we've partnered with Rent Ready because that is the software system that both me and Zeona use to do property management for our rental properties. It makes things super easy. We can send applications, get background checks and credit checks. Tenants, when they come in, can pay rent automatically through there. They can submit maintenance requests, do everything you need to do for property management all in one place. That's why Rent Ready is the thing that we've done. I've been using them for years now. And that's why we reached out to them for a relationship on the show. And so again, super excited to have them on board. If you go to rentready.com and use the code Investify, you'll get 50% off your first 6 months. That's right. 50% off your first 6 months. If you go to rentready.com, sign up and use the coupon code INVEST2FI. And can't wait to see you there. Let us know, hit us up on Instagram, hit us up on wherever, and let us know what you think of Rent Ready. Because again, I think it's an amazing software. I use it all the time. You can access it from your phone. Amazing stuff. So thanks so much. And let's get back to the episode. Taylor, my man, welcome to the show. How are you doing today, dude?
I'm doing good. Thanks so much for having me on. It's super fun, but also a pleasure to be able to be recording with you guys.
Yeah, I am so pumped to have you on, man. I've been looking forward to this for a while, and we did it in the coldest week in Minnesota. Just a cold week in Minnesota. I guess it's just a normal week in Minnesota, right? How cold is it there?
Yesterday, it was colder in Minneapolis than it was in Antarctica. So it was negative 15, but with wind chill around negative 40. So there was warnings, don't go outside with exposed skin or you'll get frostbite in 10 minutes. Yeah.
Wow.
David
Goggins is out there in Minneapolis, I bet, like swimming in the lake or whatever. Sounds like you might have to move to Antarctica though, dude.
I know. It kind of feels like an ethical issue because I'm a real estate agent by profession. So I'm kind of doing people a disservice by making them stay here.
I know it's true. It's true. But hey, man, let's get into your story. I know you've got a fun one and I want to hear about where it all started. So how did you first hear about financial independence?
So it was never really something that I grew up having people in my life that were really big into financial independence. I kind of stumbled into it on accident, and it was the best accident of my life. So my background is in tech. I worked at retail tech for probably 4 or 5 years. Was in the Twin Cities of Minnesota, got to a point in my job and my wife's job where we're like, hey, we don't really want to take our jobs any further. Let's quit our jobs, go on a 2 or 3 month trip over in Europe. We'll come back and we'll figure out what's next. And in my mind, I was like, I'm going to force an epiphany. This is my vision quest. I'm claiming it. So we packed up our stuff, moved to the UK, which is where my sister and her husband, who's British, were living. We thought, hey, we'll just travel around the UK and Europe for 2 or 3 months, do the whole backpacking thing, and then we'll come back and then automatically we'll know what we need to do next.
And so when was this? What year was this?
This was August of 2015.
Okay, August 2015, you're gallivanting through Europe. Sounds good.
Yep. So spent 2 or 3 months traveling around. Started to run out of money because we started traveling with a decent chunk of savings, $13,000, which for me, ton of money. That is a lot of money. Thinking we'll spend this, come back and figure it out. Bank account started dwindling. And instead of coming home, we actually got one-way tickets to Sydney, Australia. We had friends that were living there that I had previously worked with. They're like, hey, we'll get you a job here. So the thought was we'll go to Australia, work there for 2 or 3 months, come back, not broke, and then figure out what we should do. Ended up getting hired at my previous employer in Sydney, just a couple blocks from the Sydney Opera House. And we thought we'd be there for 2 months, ended up being there for 1.5 years. So our 2-month trip turned into 2 years of being abroad.
So as an experienced traveler, I just want to highlight this because a lot of people think, oh my gosh, if I quit my job, if I take a gap year, I'm going to just totally, miss life. I'll miss all these opportunities and I won't be able to get back into the workforce. But actually what I've found is that when you live your passion, when you go out there and you experience life and you're really in this rich place, then all of these great opportunities come. And so it's like, who would have ever thought you would get a job in Australia, right? But it's because you were kind of on this path already that these things opened up to you. So I love that you were doing that.
Yeah. I mean, I think the greatest things in life come about from unforeseen opportunities, and you having the courage to kind of step into the unknown and saying, worst case scenario, I can just come back and do exactly what I'm doing now. So totally agree with that.
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah, I love that. I think that is in most cases, the worst case scenario is the scenario that you're in right now, right? Like you can always retreat back to where you are right now. If you've got a W-2 job and you go out and try to go to Australia or to try your own venture, you can come back and find another job. And I think people lose sight of that. I think it's just because it's like you said, it's just the fear of the unknown that people are so afraid of. But I think that's exciting.
And also there's that idea of, I heard someone say this once, and I'm totally a big believer of this, is that the thought of, I can always dig a ditch. And what I mean by that is I'm hardworking. I'm going to support my family. I'm not above any work. Worst case scenario, I come back and I'll get whatever job I need to do to support for as long as I need to. So yeah, ended up taking a leap, and it was a very, very transformational part in my life, and then also my marriage, which was awesome.
That's amazing.
Nice.
Okay. So 2015 to 2017, you're in the UK, you're in Australia. You got a job in Australia. What was the job you had in Australia?
So I was working at the Apple store. I was helping lead the Genius Bar team at the Sydney flagship Apple store. So you would think that disgruntled retail customers in the US would be very unique. They're not. The same disgruntled retail customers in Australia, just with a different accent.
How many times do you have to turn off someone's phone and turn it back on and have it be working again?
Yes, exactly. Over and over and over. But it was a really great experience because I was able to lead and work with a team of people from 30 different countries speaking 15 different languages. And it was really cool.
Super cool. So then what got you to come back to the US?
So loved my time there. I was having the time of my life, rock climbing on the weekends, working at Apple, skateboarding to work every day. And my wife wasn't having as good of an experience. So there were every couple months, we would have a conversation of, well, what are we doing here? What's our purpose here? And during one of those conversations, Sarah wanting to come home and me thinking, but Sarah, my resume is going to look great when I get home. She was basically like, I was basically like, you're right. We should go home, because we were 28 at the time. We wanted to start a family eventually, but didn't feel like we had a foundation for that to be a wise decision. So ended up moving back to the States, June 2017. I had coffee meetings set up with friends that were working at some great corporate tech companies around the cities, which that's what I thought I was going to jump into. But right at the time where we came back, my brother-in-law, who had been a real estate agent for about a year and a half, was at a point in his business where he said, hey, I'm on a team. I want to start my own team. You have experience leading teams. You should try real estate, which I'd never, ever considered, because I had never had anyone in my life to look at and say like, oh, this is what a realtor life looks like. And in my mind, I thought, all right, slick back hair, suit, drive a BMW. I'm not that guy. But I talked to all my closest friends, all my closest family members, prayed about it a ton, and was like, Lord, you're opening up doors. I'm just going to start sprinting through these doors. And if this is not the right path, slam one in my face, please. And Z, kind of like we just mentioned, it's like,
yeah,
it was an opportunity. I'd never thought of it ever before. I'll jump in knowing that, hey, I can take a year, and if it doesn't work out, I learned a ton. I learned it wasn't what I wanted to do, and I can just go back to where I was.
Absolutely.
So I ended up getting licensed as a real estate agent August of 2017, and now I'm ruined. I can't imagine it. I can't ever imagine ever having another job.
And so you went from the beautiful Australia to St. Paul, Minnesota.
Minneapolis,
Minnesota. And that was because you said you had a brother there, or who was it?
So my wife is originally from Minnesota. We met at college, in North Carolina, where we both went to school. And as all good Minnesotans do, they call it the Minnesota boomerang. Minnesotans go out, grab someone, come back. And that's how Minnesota repopulates.
That's how Minnesota repopulates.
So I ended up moving back to Minnesota to be close to Sarah's family. That's where we'd been for a couple of years after college. Jumped into real estate with Sam, my brother-in-law, and he said, all right, this is what you do. Here's this podcast called BiggerPockets. Listen to every episode and let's go sell some houses.
So that was the start of your real estate journey, man. So that's a fun little start. And so clearly you used some of your experience from the Apple store and you brought that over. And there's so many good things that apply to being a real estate agent and just in real estate in general, like just business stuff. And so what was the first thing you did in your real estate business, outside of like actionable items? So you're listening to the podcast. What is the first actionable item that you took?
Well, the hardest part about real estate is, or really any sales job, is not doing your job. It's getting people to trust you to do your job for them. And me not being from Minnesota, I didn't have a high school sphere. I didn't have a big friend sphere. I didn't have a college sphere to lean on and say, hey, I'm a realtor. Let me help you buy a house. So my background at Apple, unbeknownst to me, was the perfect segue into real estate, because in real estate, Craig, I don't have to convince you to buy a house. If you can not be homeless, you're not going to be homeless. And if you can buy a house, you're going to buy a house. So it was a big mindset shift for me to know that I don't need to sell someone a house. I need to show someone why I am the right person to help them through this process. So the big way that I started was just creating educational pieces. So I could show people the value that I could bring them for free. So it felt like a no-brainer for them to take the next steps forward through the purchasing process.
And what types of educational pieces were those?
So it was I did a lot of open houses on other real estate agents' listings. And as people would come through the door, I would just start to have a good conversation with people and educate them on, oh my gosh, you're just starting the process. I really encourage you to start here. Oh, if you haven't done this, I'd really encourage you to do this. Hey, would it be helpful if I introduced you to this person, right? So it was all about providing value. And through that providing value, people seeing the potential value I could bring them through the rest of the process.
Love that. I think that's one thing. I just finished reading Gary Vaynerchuk's book, which is like a little old now, but jab, 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 right hook. And it's all the jab that he talks about are bringing value. And then eventually you come in with the right hook and you have an ask, but you have to give before you can ask or receive. And I think you figured that out pretty quickly in the real estate business. And like go to open houses, give value, make videos, put some cool posts on Instagram, like give away all your stuff. Because even if you give it away, I think there's a scarcity mindset people have that like, if I give away everything, then I'm not going to be different. Well, it's like, no, because there's some things you just can't give without using you, right? Like your experience. And when things come up that are unexpected, how would Taylor Doolittle handle those things? That's not going to be found in any sort of Instagram post that you have, right?
Right. And there's a great Zig Ziglar quote that talks about if you help enough people get what they want, you'll get what you want. So in providing that value, just like you're doing through this podcast, chatting about financial independence, you're helping people get it. And it's valuable for them, rewarding for you, and it's a win-win-win for everybody.
Love it.
So I want to make sure that we have enough time to hear about your real estate investments. I know we're all agents, so it's nice to talk about that and get other people into being agents. Come to us. But yeah, how did you go from seeing and helping people buy houses to going, oh, I should probably do this too?
So great question. As a real estate professional, you're walking through houses every day, and it just kind of made sense to me that, hey, if I'm helping people do this, it totally makes sense for me to do this. Who better to be able to walk into a property and realize potential value than someone that walks through properties for a living? So got licensed August 2017, and in between August and the end of the year, I made more money in my real estate business than I did the entire previous year working in my previous job. So it's kind of game over. I'm sold. This is it forever. And in April 2018 was when I purchased my first property with my wife, which happened to be a duplex with kind of a sneaky third unit. So kind of put myself out there talking to a lot of agents, and an agent friend of mine who was a real estate agent. I said, if you can find me something, you can represent me as my agent. And so he came across something off market, threw it my way. And then I just kind of took the back seat as the client because he provided the value. And so he was my agent through the process.
Z, are you thinking what I'm thinking?
The for real deal.
All right, Taylor. So you jumped the gun a little bit, but we love it, and you're such a good storyteller. So what's so dumb? I like us being dumb. Okay. So we're gonna get into the for real deal. This is the deal. This is your first deal. This is the deal that makes you go from homeowner, real estate agent to real estate investor. So you mentioned you got your agent by basically being like, yo, find me a deal and you can represent me. That's right. Even though you were an agent yourself.
Correct. Yeah. And this was a close buddy of mine, right? So it wasn't me reaching out to a bazillion agents. This was a good friend of mine who was also an agent, who worked in the multifamily space. And I said, if you come across anything, then send it my way. And I was excited because through listening to the BiggerPockets, it kind of clicked in my mind that whether you're renting or you're owning a home, you're paying a mortgage. You're just either paying your mortgage or you're paying someone else's mortgage. So it kind of clicked. Buy a house. And if you're in a state of a phase of life where, hey, you can have roommates, you can have people live across the wall, get roommates. So it just made sense to go multifamily for us.
I love that. And that's called house hacking, I believe. And there's an awesome book written on it by, what's the guy's name? I forget, but yeah, go check it out. So you bought this duplex, with a single, it's kind of like it's like a 2.5 plex. It almost sounds right. It's 2 units. Describe the property a little bit.
So there were 3 units, but only 2 of them were licensed, according to the city. So it was basically side by side 1950s duplex with a walkout basement. Half of the basement was utilities. Half of the basement was actually a third 2-bed, 1-bathroom unit. Wow. So at some point in ownership, the sellers finished that to be a sneaky third unit.
Okay. I love the sneaky third units. And how much did you buy this property for?
So ended up rolling my closing costs into it. So ended up purchasing it for $304,000 and then having the sellers cover my closing costs.
Okay. And this was in Minneapolis.
This was in a suburb of Minneapolis.
Minneapolis. Okay. All right. So you bought this, we'll just call it a triplex. So this triplex for $304,000. Again, depending on your market, this will be different everywhere. Right. But let's carry on. So what was your mortgage payment on that property?
So ended up having to actually put 15% down because we needed a co-signer because I hadn't been in my business for 2 years yet as a business owner. So shout out to Dad, co-signed with us. And so ended up putting 15% down, which made our mortgage payment around $1,650.
Okay. $1,650. So you're putting about 50 grand, 45, 50 grand down. Mm-hmm. And was that savings just through, the prior, 6-7 months of being a real estate agent?
It's exactly what it was. Yeah.
Wow. Powerful. Okay. So 1,650 is your mortgage payment. Yep. What unit are you living in?
So there were long-term tenants in the 2 actual units. The bottom unit was vacant. So what we ended up doing is we ended up going into the property, renovating that bottom unit for us to move into with just doing paint, light fixtures, light kitchen rehab, did all the work ourselves, installed a couple egress windows. We didn't do that ourselves, and moved into that.
I'm really wondering how much of a sell this was to your wife. Like going into the basement unit, was she into this or was she like, what the hell are we doing now? I already followed you to Australia and back.
Turns out which I would suggest this to anybody, I super married up. I don't know how I swindled this. And Sarah was totally on board. She was pumped on it.
Cool.
Financial independence is something that's really big for her as well. So it honestly wasn't a huge sell.
Cool.
Also,
That's
walk out basement. So one side of the unit had full size windows looking out to the backyard. So basement
nice.
didn't feel as basementy.
Love it. Cool. So what were you getting for rents on the top two units?
So this was 4 or 5 years ago now. So can't quite remember when I moved in there. I believe so. Both of the units were super under rent because the previous owners had paid it off, so they didn't need high rents to cash flow really well. So I had to go in and have some fairly uncomfortable conversations, just saying like, "Hey guys, I literally can't afford this, and you're super under market. So market's here. Let's meet somewhere here just to make it a win-win." So ended up, I believe, getting 1,300 on one side and 1,200 on the other.
Okay.
Nice.
That's still pretty good, right? You're making $2,500 on a $1,600 mortgage payment, plus you're living rent free, right? Yeah. So that's really the biggest component of it. So I have a couple of questions surrounding these inherited tenants, right? And so how were these tenants? Because you hear horror stories about inherited tenants. Anything, or were they just chill?
They were super chill. One of the ladies that lived there had lived there for 27 years.
Whoa.
It's like since before you were born at the time.
If she would have owned the place, she would have had the mortgage paid off.
That's crazy.
Insane. So she was really sweet, but older lady had been living there. So it felt a little bit like there was this perception of like, who's this young child moving into the property, telling me what to do at my house? So it was a bit delicate.
Yeah. So how did you handle that conversation?
As respectfully as possible, just saying like, hey, you know what? This is what you're paying for rent. Here's some rental comparables. I could charge this, but I'm going to charge this. Would love for you to sign a 12-month lease. If you want to buy a place, you can break your lease at any time if you use me as your real estate agent.
Boom,
nice.
Boom, boom.
She ended up buying a place and she didn't use me.
Charged her double rent, didn't give her back her security deposit.
Yeah.
Oh, man. Well, I think that's a pretty cool story. So you had 16. So you're cash flowing almost $1,000 a month, like right off the bat on that place. And you're not even getting market rent, right?
Right. So cash flowing and living there. So adding that together, it was not a normal deal. Don't expect this in most markets. It was just kind of with that sneaky third unit, which I did end up getting in trouble for from the city.
Okay.
And so now things there look a little different.
Okay. So
into that if you want.
Yeah, let's talk about the evolution of this property, because I think I have a couple of sneaky units myself. And so like what happened?
So it probably depends on the city you're in, the rental inspector, how strict they are, how they decide to read the language in the rental rules. But in my mind, it was licensed for 2 units, so I could rent out 2 units, and I'm not renting out the one I'm living in. But they came in and said, no, only 2 families are allowed to live here. So kind of had to pivot over the couple years that we lived there. We lived there from April 2018 to July 2020. So we lived there for 2 years. So, all right, track with me. So we lived here, tenants here. They moved out. We renovated this unit. We moved up. Sneaky moved in someone in the bottom, even though we'd already gotten in trouble for it. She bought a place. We paid someone to renovate this unit. So at that point, all units were rented. And the agreement that I came to with the city was you can count the bottom floor. You can wrap the bottom unit into a top unit and count it as a single unit. If you only have 2 mailboxes, it's the same lock to get into the door and they're on the same lease. So I could still functionally use it as a 3 unit, but now whenever we rent that out, I have property management now that handles it. They just need to find a special situation where they can find like maybe friends or a larger group where it's like, hey, we're getting cheaper rent combined than if we had 2 2-bed, 1-bathroom units, but I'm getting more than if I was just renting out 1. So now updated numbers as of yesterday, because of property taxes, mortgage went up to $1,895. I'm getting $1,400 on one side and then $2,200 on the other kind of combined unit. So that's cash flow of $1,700, which is
that's nuts.
That's great.
Which is nice.
That's crazy. So how did the city even find out about this? Did you?
During their rental inspection in this specific city, they would do a walkthrough every year. And then they want access to the entire property. Come to find out, that sneaky third unit had been on their radar and flagged by the past like 2 or 3 owners, because everyone had tried to use it and the city said no every time. So they knew specifically to come in, which it wasn't listed as a 3 unit, and they didn't say that I could use it, right? So it wasn't the sellers trying to be sneaky. It was just me trying to make something work. And it was me trying to be sneaky.
Yeah.
But I love the way you did it, because it seems like other people may have not used it. They might have just said, oh, well, we can't use this unit, so too bad. But you were like, how can I make it one big unit, which is super great, because you could get a big family. You could get like mixed professionals that want to have 2 kitchens. Like, it's an easy sell. So I think that is so great that you're finding a way to make it work. It's that thing where it's like, you don't just take a no and let it stop you, but you go, how can I find a way to make this still work?
Yeah. And with the city, I was like, we need housing. This is a beautiful unit. So in my mind,
exactly.
Even if I couldn't squeeze out an entire market rent out of that, I'd rather pull something out of it. So I just wanted to make sure the space was being used in some way.
Yeah, no, I think that's great. So that was kind of the first property, and you lived there for 2 years. Mm-hmm. Is there any reason why you stayed there for 2 years instead of like jumping year after year?
We got pregnant.
Oh, hey.
So the day that our governor in Minnesota decided to shut down the state of Minnesota, we found out that we were pregnant with our first kid, which was super exciting. And once we were pregnant, that's when my wife was like, I'm not living in a duplex anymore. You got to get me a house for this baby to be in. So
with an ADU, hopefully.
So had been looking mid 2018 through 2019, was looking and just didn't really find anything that was exciting that I wanted to do. So I just basically was chucking things into savings, just kind of waiting.
Wow. Okay. That makes perfect sense. Definitely a life-changing thing. And then when you moved out of this property in 2020, you moved into a traditional home?
Yes. So at the same time we were looking for a home to purchase, a duplex popped up that I did want to buy. So I ended up having personal residence and then second multifamily under contract simultaneously, and then did one closing right after the other.
Okay. And so did you use any sort of low down payment options here, or?
Nope. So did not. No, they were big down payments on both.
So 20% down on both houses?
I ended up doing more than 20% down on my personal residence, just because I was right on the verge of different loan products and I wanted to stay in one to lock in what were really insanely low interest rates at the time. So I was able to lock in 2.875 interest rate for 30 years on a primary that we will be in probably forever. So
yeah,
amazing.
So no brainer. And then you could not do a low down payment on the multifamily, obviously, because you can't live there, obviously, because you're buying your primary.
Yes.
Or is there something?
Yes and no. So yes, paper wise, yes. Benefit of being a real estate professional is I got paid on the deal because I was my agent. So I almost got a refund for a portion of the proceeds that I brought. It was a $400,000 duplex, made around 3% as my commission. So I almost got a refund. So another benefit of being a real estate professional.
Yeah, that's huge too. Cool, man. So at this point, have you hired property management on that first property immediately, or when did you hire the property manager?
So the most stressful thing for me in the year 2020 was not a global pandemic. It was one specific tenant. And as a result of my experience with that, If you have great tenants, it feels like mailbox money and you forget you have properties. If you have bad tenants, you never forget you have that property. So it's my fault. I didn't do a good job vetting. I didn't do a good job with rental criteria. And everyone had a tough time mentally in 2020. I set bad expectations. She had crazy high expectations, not a good fit. So at the end of going into 2021, I hired property management for everything.
Okay. And how did you find a property manager to handle such a unique property like that one with the, would anybody be willing to take that on or?
Turns out that my good buddy that was an agent that helped me buy it started a property management company. And so he just took it on.
Sweet. Okay. All right. Should we get into number 2? Let's do it.
Talk about it.
All right. Let's talk about,
yeah, 400, right? And then you had to put 20% down. So what were the numbers on that one?
Ooh, okay. Numbers on that duplex. So mortgage payment was just under $2,000 a month. And I was able to, in the first week of listing it, it was completely vacant. So I was able to get new leases on market rents. So $2,000 a month was my monthly payment. And then I got $1,675 on one side and then $1,650 on the other side.
Okay. Wow.
Man.
So about
I love
30...
that you could just pick that up on the market.
I know.
It's just like, why aren't people doing those all day?
This was the way that I found out about this one is another agent buddy of mine called me and said, a duplex just went up for sale in my neighborhood. I can't buy it. You should buy it. And so I just like, all right, I trust you. And I bought it. So letting people know what you're looking for specifically. So if they run across something, they can send it your way is hugely important.
That's awesome. So, and that was a side-by-side duplex too, right?
Yeah. So this was another 1950s side-by-side duplex.
Okay. And do you have any, do you prefer the side-by-side over the up-down or do you care, or is just whatever the opportunity is?
At least in our market, anything that's 1950s or newer is going to be a side-by-side. Anything older than that, at least in our market, are going to be old up-down 1910, 1915 duplexes in the city. And just from a property maintenance perspective, side-by-side 1950 duplexes are just more modern electricity, modern plumbing, modern framing, modern insulation. So just in my mind, less upkeep and just a better investment for what I want to do longer term.
Yeah. When I started investing in real estate, what I could afford were those 100-year-old homes. They're just easier, cheaper to find, all of that. And I learned the hard way through all the maintenance that it's like, now I don't buy anything that's older than 1950. So I think you're right there on that cutoff. It sounds like a good spot to be in.
Yeah. So you got this duplex for $400,000. Your mortgage payment's about $2,000. You're making about $3,300 a month. Is this a typical deal in the Twin Cities?
Not anymore. Maybe for when I bought it in 2020, but prices are appreciating everywhere. So you less margin to be expected. Now, in both of these properties that I took on, they were both long-term owners and they both had old roofs. They both had old mechanicals. So just by happenstance, it's just came across deals that I was able to recognize immediately because I'm walking through properties all the time. This is a good deal. I'll take it.
Right. Love that. Now, yeah, it's a good thing about integrating your we call it like a vertical income, how you make your active income with your passive income, right? Like there's a lot of synergies being a real estate agent and being a real estate investor, especially, if you're a residential real estate investor and a residential real estate agent. Let's kind of skip ahead to kind of like where you are today, right? Like, what does your portfolio look like today? Or was there any big things that you've done between, 2020 and today?
So purchased 2 properties since then. And both of them were, again, just opportunities that happened to pop up. One was a single family that I got a call from someone saying, hey, how much would my house sell for as is? And I said, I'm on my way. And I went there and I said, I'll buy it. And so I was able to buy it for $175, single family. It appraised for $240 as is, but I could probably sell it for $260, $270. Just turn that into a single family rental. And then I most recently in December, just a month ago from us recording this, I purchased a 10 unit. So my first commercial property.
Nice.
Yeah.
Wow, that's
Super
a big
cool.
leap.
Yeah. How did you make that leap? Like, how did you find the commercial property, and what gave you the courage to do that?
So I'm just a big believer of, if you could go bigger, do it. Because if the market appreciates 10%, okay, the appreciation 10% on my $175 single family is X, whereas 10% appreciation on $1 million building, it's going to be much more. And again, this was just another opportunity. An agent on my team, my brother-in-law, called me and said, "Hey, I just talked to an apartment owner. This seems like a good deal. You should buy it." And I said, "Okay, I'll buy it."
And so did you do 25% down, bought it yourself, kind of typical?
So this was actually a really cool deal. So I was able to get it for tax assessed value. The owner had owned it for 30 years. The owner before him had owned it for 30 years. So it's a nice long-term building that two people have had for over 70 years. Got it under contract for $925, had an inspection, had some foundation issues, got structural engineers in there, got quotes to do those fixes. And through the inspection period said, "Hey, seller, I'm going to need $110,000 to do these massive repairs." And he said, "Okay," because he had a property that he wanted to purchase, and he found and had under contract that he wanted to roll proceeds into. And the way that my commercial lender accounted for that $115,000 repair credit is they just reduced my cash to close. So I was supposed to need around $240,000 to buy this, and I ended up coming to the table with $120,000. So I essentially got it for close to 10% down for a commercial building, which was my cash on cash return now is really good.
That's awesome. And are you planning to go in and do any sort of repairs or any sort of bump the rents, or like how do you increase value to the multifamily property?
So that's a good question. All long-term, way under market rents. And so trying to find that balance of, hey, we need to get closer to market, but I don't want it to be fully vacant. Also, a lot of long-term tenants, don't want to cause everyone to be homeless. At the same time, a mentor of mine once said, "Hey, let your business be your business and your charity be your charity, but don't let your business be your charity." So my initial plan was over 3-4 years, get us up to market. But the city of St. Paul already passed this rule. This building is in Minneapolis, and it's probably close behind what St. Paul just did, but they are putting rent increase caps where you can only increase rent 3% per year. So if I don't raise these rents closer to market, and then that 3% cap gets instated, then inflation and property taxes going up will outpace me being able to increase rent over time. So kind of force my hand to get things closer. So average rent across these 10 units was around $770, but market rent across this is closer to $1,100.
Wow. So that 3% rule, though, that's only on the same tenant, right? If they move out, you can raise the rents however much you want for the new tenant, or no?
Gray area.
Gray area. Okay. Because I know like in California, they have rent control and there's a certain percentage, but if they move out, then they can bump it up.
There's so much gray area of, okay, did it go into place? When does it take effect? Can you do this? Can you do that? And it's one of those things that you're not going to call the city and ask, "Hey, can I do this?" No, you can't. Oh, shoot. Sorry.
Yeah, man, that's tough. So what is your, okay. So you got a couple of residentials, 3, I think residential, 1 to 4 unit properties. You got this one big 10-plex. What does your passive income look like monthly on these properties total?
Monthly total, we're probably looking at around $5,000 or $6,000, between $5,000 and $6,000 a month.
Okay. And
nice.
That's really nice. And that is like financial independence at probably like a base level financial independence, or like you're starting to introduce some luxuries into your life now, I suspect. And it's like, and it took you how long to get there? You bought your first property in 2018?
Yeah. 2018 is when
2018. And here we are like 3.5, 4 years later, and $5,000-6,000 of passive income, right? So just to show everybody that it really does not take a long time to seriously change your life through real estate investing. You just got to find the right properties, find the right teammates, and don't be afraid to take action. That's the biggest thing.
I was going to say people overestimate what they can do in a year and underestimate what they can do in 5. And if you would have told me 5 years ago, this is what your life is going to look like, I would laugh in your face. I was just able to get in incredible communities and surround myself with people that were able to pull me up.
So true. So true. Z, where were you 5 years ago?
That's funny. I just did this exercise because I'm doing like 25-year horizon planning, which is really hard to do. 5 years ago, I was living in my 1-bedroom apartment and I was financially independent, but I really wanted to be in a relationship. And now I'm engaged. Like there's just so many things in my life that really, really changed. So it is really nice to look back and be like, oh yeah, I can do all these things. 5 years is a big leap for sure.
It really is. Yep.
But what I was going to interrupt him with is that at the beginning, you were telling us that this original duplex, you're about to do a cash out refi and you have some plans for that. So tell us a little bit more, because it is really exciting when you have real estate for a while to start to see how your real estate can buy your other real estate.
Yeah. So I couldn't be a bigger advocate for owning real estate. And just the power over time of the appreciation of values is just crazy. So cash flow is incredible because it allows you to maybe exit your job, to have that financial independence, to be able to not be able to have to worry about bills. But the bigger side of wealth that is created in real estate is from appreciation of value over time. So purchased this property in 2018, that duplex that I chatted originally about, $304,000. I'm about to do a cash out refinance on it. It appraised for $440,000. So I'm able to pull out $104,000 and add only $500 to my monthly payment. And remember, I'm cash flowing $1,750 on it. So I'm still going to be cash flowing $1,200 after that additional loan payment and have $100,000 tax-free equity in my bank account ready for the next property that I'm looking for now.
Love that. So as long as you get a return higher than whatever your refinanced rate is, you will be, it's just efficiency of money, right? It's, we hear a lot about return on investment, but return on equity is another metric that you should look at as you start to acquire more and more properties, because you're going to accumulate equity in your property. And if you're not getting, and it's kind of dead equity if it's just sitting in your house, right? And so what is that return on equity? And, it's a fun calculation to run. And when you are, maybe if you are like under leveraged is kind of how it is, right? I think it's a great thing to refinance, pull it out and reinvest in something else.
Yeah. The interest rate on that will be around 4.5%. So I just need to find an investment that you could throw it in crypto and get an 8% return on a stable coin.
Yeah, there you go.
But I'm going to buy real estate with it.
Love it. Love it. Cool. Well, we're about heading into the final part of our show, the final four. Taylor, we're going to give you one last chance to leave us with some words of wisdom, though.
Well, I would say the biggest impact in my life over the past 4 or 5 years, because my life has drastically changed, is again, surrounding yourself with people that are going to pull you up. And I've been fortunate in my 32 years of life to have lived the idea of you are the average of the people that you surround yourself with. So whether it's finding a local meetup group, or scheduling coffees with people, or, hey, a friend's dad, I know he does this, I wonder if he'd sit down with me, is you gotta change your environment.
Love it. I absolutely love that piece of advice.
The final four.
Z, kick us off.
All right. What are you reading right now?
So I love reading. I'm a big book nerd. So usually I have a couple books going. So I almost always have a learning book, so business or development, a faith book, because my faith is the most important thing to me, and a for fun book. So my learning book right now, I'm reading a book called Alchemy by Rory Sutherland, about the illogic of successful marketing. It's really cool, challenging my belief on marketing. Faith book, I'm reading The Ruthless Elimination of Hurry by John Comer, which is kind of a contrast to that like hustle grind culture that we've all been hearing about over the past couple of years. And then I'm a huge sci-fi fantasy nerd. So I just finished the Mistborn trilogy by Brandon Sanderson, my second time through.
Love it. I love geeks.
Can't relate to the sci-fi thing. I'm sorry, man.
Dude, I have no shame about it at all.
I love that though. All right, man, what is the best piece of advice you've ever received?
Man, I've gotten so much great advice. The first thing that came to mind is a quote that probably a lot of people get attributed to is entrepreneurship is living a few years of your life like most people won't, so you can spend the rest of your life like most people can't. So that can apply to entrepreneurship, investing, starting your own business. So people might say, I'm done with college. I don't want roommates. Well, hey, if you're willing to live with roommates, house hack for 2, 3, 4, 5 years, you're going to be so thankful you did that by the time in 5, 6, 7 years after that. That's huge.
Yeah. And people forget that how the most like Warren Buffett has made all his wealth from aged 65 to 90, right? Literally, if he were to retire at 65, he would have 50 million, but you would never heard of him. All of like time is the most valuable resource you have in saving and compounding. So if the earlier you are, like if you're young listening to this, like get started saving now, because that's going to compound. And I'm jealous of how young some people are starting these days.
Yeah, I really like that. And then another one that's been huge for me in the past couple of years is God can't steer a parked car. And that whole idea of like, you just got to take action and your steps will be guided. You got to take action.
I love that too.
That's great.
Amazing.
Man, this guy's just a wisdom bomb. I love
really
it.
Is.
Okay. Question number 3. What is your why?
So I did a practice over the past couple of years developing my own personal mission statement. So I'll read it to you guys. My purpose or my why is to encourage, equip, and lead those around me to achieve their fullest personal, professional, and spiritual potential through the use of their unique God-given talents and abilities.
Love that.
Great.
My big thing is encouraging and motivating and challenging and leading. Craig, I know you're capable of this. Let's go. Let's do it.
Let's do it. Yeah.
Being able to see your potential maybe before you even do, helping you realize that, and then leaning into your unique talents and abilities to achieve it.
Yeah. I also love, I love your mission statement in general. I also love the fact that you have a life mission statement. Like, what inspired you to write a life mission statement?
The people I surround myself with. I have an awesome mentor, and he's got he did a study with me and a handful of friends. And the whole study was around, hey, what's your personal mission field? What's your personal mission statement? Like, why are you on this earth? Because you can't live an intentional life on accident, right? So you need to get dialed in, be purposeful, and then you can make an impact in your friend's life, your community's life, those people around you. So just getting really dialed in on your purpose, I think, is so important.
I love this so much. I wish we could keep going. This is so great.
I'm just surprised you don't have a purpose. Like you haven't done a deep dive around this?
I do have a loose one. I wrote my obituary, which is a fun exercise.
That's a weird exercise. Yeah.
Well, it's not like, no, it's
it's to say like what I have achieved in my life.
Yeah. It's not like my obituary next year. It's like my obituary like 100 years from now. So
I get it.
But yeah, I think I love the exercise.
In order to do a lot of this stuff, you need to create goals, right? But it's hard to create goals if you don't know where you're going, right? Mm-hmm. So Absolutely. Being able to have some sort of, right, that practice of writing an obituary, or I recently wrote my vivid vision, which is very impactful. Like, hey, 3 years down the road. Because if you have that long-term goal in mind, then you can kind of start zooming in further and further. Okay, if I want to be there in 3 years, that means I got to do this year, which means I got to do this quarter, this month, which means weekly, I got to do this. Mm-hmm. So I think it's super powerful if you can be purposeful on the direction that you want to take your life and your family's life.
Totally agree. You need that clarity. And Z, I know you're doing your 25-year plan. I frankly, I don't even think that would even be for me personally. I don't even think that would be helpful because I cannot think that far. Maybe that's a limiting belief and I should think that far out, but 3 years is really hard for me. I think that's the max I could do.
I don't know. It's actually a really cool exercise because basically, I don't know if you're used to the wheel of life exercise where you kind of look at your life with 8 different categories, but basically you go, okay, if I do a thing of where my life is now, maybe one section's a 3 and one's a 10 or whatever, but how do you get all sections to be a 10 out of 10? And what would that life look like? And who is that person? And then it's really cool to work backwards. So we have a 25, then we have a 5, then we have a 1, and then we do quarters and weeks. So I'm just in a different group. It's not GoBundance, but I know you guys are in GoBundance and we structure it like that. But it's powerful. So
I love that. I love it.
I'm into it.
Awesome.
Literally just taking the action to even think about it, right? So again, I mean, we keep going back to the community you surround yourself with. You might have an awesome set of friends, which is great, but there's also communities that you can join, like a local investment group or places like GoBundance or Z, like your place. It's just get around people that are just as motivated to crush it as you are.
Love it so much. All right, Taylor, in 40 years, what do you think your children, not 40 years, when you are old, what do you think your grandchildren will want you to tell stories of?
Whenever I think about family in the future, it gets me really teary-eyed because it's just family so important to me. The first thing that comes to mind, honestly, is me telling grandkids stories about how much I love their grandma.
Yeah, I was thinking that too. So I always loved hearing stories of how people met and stuff. That's always the cutest.
Yeah, the cute little things that you do for her now and stuff, and hopefully still do then.
Yeah, I want to live a life that my grandkids, my grandfather was a patriarch for our family and was really impactful to his 7 kids, who one of them was my mom, and then 40 cousins of mine. So if I can lead an example for future generations of making an impact in those around me, and then an impact for the kingdom, my faith is super important to me. And man, I just want to be able to walk up to the pearly gates one day and have the Lord say, "Well done, good and faithful servant." It's my goal.
I love it, man. I love that. Okay. So where can people find out more about you?
Super active on Facebook, in my real estate business and investments and things like that. So adding me just as a friend on Facebook. I'm also fairly active on Instagram. My handle is just at Taylor.Doolittle, Doolittle. That's where I post just more kind of fun, goofy stuff. But I have a lot of fun in what I do.
And don't let the name deceive you. He does a lot.
Yes.
That was
all right.
So stupid.
I had to throw it in there. I'm sorry.
Make a Dr. Doolittle joke. I was where's it gonna go?
I've been holding that in all day. Awesome, Taylor. So great to have you on, man. Honestly, you've really shed such an inspiration. You've shed some really good light on your investments, on your real estate business, on your faith, and things that are important to you, and just life in general. Seriously, amazing time. And I know I'll be talking to you soon, and I can't wait to see you again, hopefully in Detroit.
Bye.
Thanks, guys, for having me on.
And that was Taylor Doolittle, aka Do a Lot. Z, what'd you think of Taylor?
I loved his story. I think it's so powerful to see what you can do in even just 3.5 years. He was able to build cash flow of 5,000 to 6,000. And I think that's huge. I mean, for many, many people, that is FI, and that could even be on the fat side of FI. And so I think that that's just really great. And one thing that I loved about it is he just trusted and kept looking for opportunities, and then they just appeared. And so I think it's really just preparing yourself, putting yourself in the right position. And then, like he said, he was telling all his friends exactly what he's looking for. And when something that fits, they found it, they came to him. So It wasn't like he was hustling. He wasn't door knocking. He wasn't putting out signs. He was just waiting. And so that's a great way to do it too.
I just love, I love that. And I love how he seems so intentional, right? He talks about his life mission statement, and everything that he does in his life, like, makes that mission statement stronger, like brings him closer to his mission statement. And I just think having that clarity and having that guidance and having somewhere to go and to lead yourself is so important. And I just love how deep he gets, and just how intentional he is.
I want to hear your mission statement, Craig. Can that be your homework? Like next week you come back with your statement?
Oh, you're only giving me a week to write it?
Yeah, why not?
Yeah. Okay. Big Papa. Yeah. Next. Okay. So next week, if you remind me on the show, I will write and state my mission statement.
Great. I want to hear it.
All right.
I think everyone wants to hear it.
Everyone wants to hear it. Yeah.
And by the way, I'm going to just put a small plug. The mastermind group or accountability group that I'm in, you're in GoBundance. I'm in one called Momentum Lab. So if anyone's interested, reach out to me on Facebook, Instagram. Happy to connect to you. But it's been very powerful for me.
Yep. Yeah. Awesome. Love that. And speaking of plugs, if you guys would not mind leaving a rating and review on the podcast, it seriously means so much to us. We look at every single one, and all of the feedback that we get, we try to come back and implement. So please let us know. Leave us a 5-star rating and review. Hit us up on Instagram. I'm at the Fi Guy. Z is Zeona McIntyre. And with that being said, we'll see you next time.
That's it for this episode of Investify. We hope that these nuggets of real estate wisdom lead to more savvy financial planning and a clearer path towards financial freedom. For more content like this, subscribe to the show at investify.com. Don't forget to leave a rating and share it with your friends. Together, we can transform more real estate newbies into successful and clever investors. Thank you so much for listening. See you on the next one.